In section 5 of chapter 6, we're going to be dealing with linear inequalities now, rather than equations. They're inequalities, sort of like an equation, but in one or in two variables. And these are the objectives. Now there's quite a few items here, and initially you're going to need to take some really good notes so that you have the background material to work on things later. And I'll go over this with you pretty much item by item. Now, one of the things we're going to be dealing with in this section are called sets and set builder notation. So maybe that would be the title in your notes for these things. Now, this is used quite extensively in this section, and then actually in your next math course as well. So, starting with your notes, we have what is called a union of sets. So you want the word union written. Now the symbol for union is this sort of funny shaped U in a sense, and that kind of ties in with union a little bit. And we use it when we're talking, let's say, about a set A, and we'll give you an illustration of this in a few moments. Union with set B. That is, two or more sets. All of the elements then are included. All of the elements in A, all of the elements in B are joined together. So, union, there's the symbol, set A in union with set B. Now, they're going to mention down below that when we're reading English and the word or, this word or down here, is thickened like that, boldface in a sense, this is sort of the word that is associated with union. So a quiz question might be, when we think of union, do we think of the word and, or do we think of the word or? And the answer in this case for union is or. So some background for union. Now another key kind of thing that can happen to sets is we have what is called intersection. Now the symbol for intersection is the upside down U in a sense. This is the symbol of intersection, as in set A intersecting with set B. That is, those elements that are found in both A and B. This is what you're thinking of, and we'll give you an example of this shortly. Now, whereas the word or is associated with union, the word and, when it's in boldface here, is related to intersection. So, again, you should have some good notes on this. You don't have to copy everything down, but know what we've just mentioned. And again, you can rewind and play back as needed. Now, in set and set builder notation, here we're saying that set A, and this is roster notation. You may have mentioned, we mentioned this before, roster notation. the members of set A are 1, 2, and 3. The members of set B are 2, 3, and 4. And what we first want to illustrate is that if we have union between set A and B, and we indicate that A or, which is the word for union, set B, how would you illustrate that if we're using these circles, the light blue and the dark blue, and the members of set A, we said were 1, 2, and 3. And the members of set B were 2, 3, and 4. So if we had union of these sets, the new grouping would be, as we indicate here, A union with B. Remember, A or B would be, in roster notation now, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we're saying, how about the intersection, that is A and B, symbolized A, the upside down U, B, this is the intersection symbol. You look and you see in your diagram what is found in set A and B are the 2 and the 3. So you would indicate that in roster notation. Now this is what we call a Venn diagram here. You may have heard of that before. So lots of quiz questions here as well. For example, what name do we give this diagram? Well, it's a Venn diagram. And if I gave you this information, what would be the union of this? Well, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. What would be the intersection of set A and B? And it would be 2 and 3. Again, pause, look at it, and let's go on. Now, they're showing in what we call set builder notation another way to show what we've just talked about in the Venn diagram. And in set builder notation, we have these braces on either end. We have the letter X, because this is the letter we're defining. We're saying X, and as we read this vertical line is read as such, X as such, as X is less than A, or indicating union, X is greater than B. Now this is in set builder notation. We can change the form of this using the OR by putting in the symbol for union. So this and this are the same. And in a sense, you're dividing your set builder notation into two parts, joining them with the union symbol, replacing this OR. And the same thing applies if we want intersection, as we look at the word and it shows it here in set builder notation, or in the general form of the set builder notation, X is such, that x is less than x is less than b. So these are equivalent. Now, I wouldn't expect you to remember these, but I would expect that you know what they stand for. Particularly this symbol, the intersection symbol, the union symbol, and of course you're familiar with the inequality symbols. Now, again, I strongly advise that you put this into your notes. The writing of it will help to emphasize what you're doing and hopefully make what they're talking about meaningful. So I would generally just copy this chart. And what we want you to do at this time then is to pause and physically copy this chart into your notes. All right, now let's go over it. So here's type of interval. Here is the algebraic notation. Now another type of notation, how we write something. This is what we refer to as interval notation. And then the graph of this, the algebra, the interval notation, is all represented by this graph. Now, you'll notice that in this graph, we're using parentheses and we're using brackets. And then this one, a bracket and a parenthesis. A parenthesis and a bracket. Now, as you look at interval notation, notice two parentheses, brackets, two brackets, two brackets. Here a bracket and a parenthesis and a bracket. So there's a lot of relationship between interval notation and the graph of what we'll be doing. Now, when we only have parentheses, we refer to this as open interval. When we have brackets on both ends, we refer to that as closed intervals. Now, when there's one bracket only, and in a sense one parenthesis, this is considered half open. Now, I haven't written anything on this for a while, so let me kind of go over something that may be useful to you. Now, when you were in high school, and we said, for instance, that x is greater than 2, which is where we're going with some of these letters here. We're going to replace these letters with values here. Now, on a graph, we would say, well, this is where 2 is on the number line. And how would we indicate that? Well, in the past, we would say, is 2 a member of this set? And they're saying x is greater than 2. And the answer is no, 2 is not a member of the set. So how do we indicate that? Well, we used to put a little circle around 2 to indicate 2 is not a member of the set. And then we would sort of darken the arrow here, darken the line, and then make the arrow. And this would be the graph of x is greater than 2. Now, Suppose they said x is greater or equal to 2. We had this equal sign. How would we graph that? And the answer is, in high school, we used to fill that dot in, indicating that 2 was actually included in the set. So we had a circle sometimes, and we had a solid dot. The circle was if it was only the inequality without the equal sign. The equal sign indicated that the 2 was included. Just the inequality sign without the equal sign. In fact, let me just do that here. This is now this, and this one is that. Oh, okay. That's better. Now, how do we translate that? Because if you're asked to draw something or write it in interval notation or something, you can't put a hollow and you can't put a solid dot. So this hollow is replaced with a parenthesis, and that's what these refer to when they say open. The parenthesis indicates that the number that they're talking about here is not included in the set. But if it's included and it has the equal sign as part of this here, then we use a bracket. So this we say then they're associating with the word closed, brackets. That means the A, whatever number that is included in the set. B, it's included in the set, in this one. Now here, the B value would not be included because it's a circle and we're using a parenthesis. Okay, well this is some background and we've worked a lot on this, and let's continue. Now, the second part of this chart is this, in which you will go and, again, might add on to the chart you already have, type of interval. Now, notice here we have open, and it's only the inequality sign, and they're showing you an interval notation, and then using the parenthesis. Now, notice in interval notation, this arrow doesn't have an end here. So what are they indicating is out there? And the answer is infinity. And in this one, again, it's going in to the left direction. What is way out there? Well, negative infinity. And you should note that infinity is not a number. It's just that it expresses a concept of going out and never ending. So we don't know what number it is. So infinity always is related to a parenthesis. As we see here for positive infinity, parenthesis, and this end, a parenthesis for negative infinity. Now, these are referred to as open intervals because of the parentheses. And then down here, the very same thing, but now we're saying that A, whatever number that is, if it's a 2, is now included in the set. Here, the 2 would not be included because of the parenthesis. This is a hollow. This is a solid dot, the bracket. Whatever number that stands for is included. So again, pause if you haven't already, take some notes, and look what is here. This is going to be your recipe for doing work a little later on. And here is the comment on the symbol for infinity. Positive infinity, negative infinity. It is not a number. It's used to indicate that the interval is to include all real numbers. And in a negative direction, it's negative infinity. In a positive direction, positive infinity. Okay, well, this was 20 minutes, so I'm going to divide this lesson into 2 parts, because this next part's going to take probably another 20 minutes, and I don't want this one lesson to be too long. So we'll divide this into 2 parts.